I've got a quiz for you. I want to see what your knowledge is like about where the weight should be in the golf swing at various points, specifically with an iron. So when we're looking at weights, in this video we're looking at, is it 100% on this leg, 100% of this leg, maybe it's 50-50. So where do you think the weight should be when I've got an iron at setup? Remember that answer. Where should the weight be with an iron at around about this point in the backswing? Where should the weight be when the club finishes moving away from the target, so end of the backswing? Where should the weight be when the lead arm is level with the ground? Where should the weight be at impact? And where should it be in the follow through? Hopefully you've had your little guesses and you've remembered those answers. So let's tell you where the weight should be, and then I'm going to teach you how to make sure you actually do it in your golf swing with an iron, and we will come to driver later because it is slightly different. So it isn't a one size fits all. These are my preferences, but these are over the years what's worked best for me with the students that I've coached. With an iron, I love to see it set up a little bit more weight into the lead side. Now I would say 55. It's obviously really hard to feel that exactly. So all I would really look for is when you're at setup, if you find a balanced position, just nudging a little bit more weight onto your lead side. So just that you could say, yeah, do you know what? I feel a little bit more weight on this leg than I do on this leg. That's perfect. The key thing here though, is I'm doing it with my thighs and my hips. Definitely don't want to do it with my head. You start doing it with your head and it's really going to affect how you take the golf club away. It's going to affect how you turn your body. So nice and balanced, 50-50. Thighs and hips go a little bit forward. I feel a little bit more there. We are now perfect. That's your starting position. So secondly, I asked you, where should the weight be here? So if you remember what you answered, at that point, you should be around about, and again, these are approximate numbers, 70-ish, 75% trail leg. Yes, that early in the golf swing. So when that club is as extended away from you as it's ever going to be, because after this point it starts to work upwards, great players are already 70+% into this trail side. That's not what I see with the amateurs. It's often later into that position. Again, we'll come to how you're going to do this in a moment. So how did you get on with that second position? Third position was when the club finishes moving away from the target, end of backswing. Well, again, it's approximate. I like 50-50. Now, that might be the one where lots of you are going, that's not what I thought. I thought the weight needed to be on this back leg. It will go onto that back leg, as I've already said, but before the club finishes moving away from the target, great golfers start to re-center themselves and start to shift themselves back to the target. So when the club finishes moving away, it's 50-50-ish. They're very centered over the golf ball. Okay, next one, lead arm level with the ground on the way down. We're looking for around about 70-ish, 75% on the lead leg. Again, this is much earlier than what we tend to see in the amateurs. Impact, you're looking at pretty much the same, 75-ish. And then end position, probably a little bit more because there's not a huge amount on that toe, so maybe 95%. Now the big message here is that if you're not striking the ball well, if you're fatting it, if you're thinning it, if you don't feel you've got compression, I would look here. There might be other areas that you need work, but this is where you're going to find that answer. So often when someone comes to see me and they're not striking the irons well enough, it's because the weight isn't moving correctly. Let me explain what I mean. If, and this is so common, the club gets to here and the weight hasn't moved, remember great golfers are 70%, you're behind. You're out of sync. So everything else is going to be late. So it's going to be late here, late here, late onto the lead side, late into the follow through. You're just behind off the get-go. It's so hard to recover. So if you've ever hit shots where you feel like you can't get through the ball, you feel like you're stuck on this back leg, and even though you're stuck there, you're desperately trying to get through onto that lead leg, it's the timing element. So what we need to do for the majority of golfers, is we need to get into this trail leg sooner. So here's what I'd love you to do. It's so simple, but it's really going to work wonders for you. You take a setup, and you literally just take your trail leg and you move it a little bit closer, not a huge amount. From there, you're going to take the club and just set it a little bit in front of the ball. What's that? A foot. Now here's the key thing. Before that club reaches the ball, I want to push down into this trail leg with a step. So what I mean by that is before the club goes behind the ball, I want to have stepped. Notice how there's a physical movement. It's not just my foot that's moving, just for effect. It's a physical push down. My pressure is going trail side before the club reaches the ball. So it's going to look something like this. I mean, I cannot strike a golf ball better than that. It was nowhere near full speed. Have a look where that divot was. My ball was pretty much in line with that alignment stick. And just look at where the divot started. Wasn't the biggest divot in the world, but it was target side of the ball. And do you know what? I didn't have to think about that at all. Didn't think about the divot, because what happened is I got here early, which allowed me to get here early. When you get here early, what is your weight doing through impact? Nothing. It's stabilized. Remember, we said it was like 75% here, 75% here. How much better are you going to be at striking the golf ball when your weight is solid, it's stable through impact? You're probably going to be at this stage one of these golfers whose weight through impact is trying to move forward. You're desperately trying to get to that front side. Your low point is going to be so variable if your weight is moving through the ball. The second little point here, and this is really key for your downswing, and I just want you to think about your lead shoulder, your lead hip. When you get to the end of your backswing, bearing in mind we've already shifted pressure early into here, your lead shoulder is lower than your trail shoulder. Your lead hip is lower than your trail hip. Watch what happens if I start to bump or push my hips towards the target. We get this. When this happens, lead shoulder goes up. When the lead shoulder goes up, where's the head go? Back, hard to get the weight forward. So what great players do in transition, when they've gone into the trail side early, they keep their lead shoulder and their lead hip lower than the trail hip and the trail shoulder for longer. Not forever, because at some point they start to pull those out of the way, but great players go into the lead side, they get more compressed, they move towards the ground. Where's the pressure now? I can tell you, it's here. Then we can stabilize it and we go through. So what I'd love you to do to really level up that ball striking with your irons, number one is your step drill. That gets the pressure early. And number two is to keep the lead side lower as you transition. So let me show you that second drill. We're going to go up, pressure goes early, lead side low, lead side low, lead side low. Now I can tell you where the pressure is. I'm guaranteed that I'm going to land the club into the ground. I can now work through. And again, where is my divot? Exactly where it needs to be. So how's it different with the driver? Well, setup. This time I like 50-50. I like a really balanced setup, equal between both legs. At this point, I like the same. 75% plus into this trail leg. Top of the backswing, I like the same. 50-50. The difference is, when we get to here in the downswing, still 75% here, but through impact, with the driver, so many great golfers have the pressure moving backwards a little bit onto this leg. Now that's not something they're intentionally doing. It's because with the driver, once the pressure goes into that lead side, how do we use that to get energy into the club? We push as hard as we can, which allows us to pull up on the handle. And because we've got a wider stance, because your center is more behind your lead foot, when you push, it pushes you back in this direction. When you've got a narrower stance, it pushes you more vertically up. So the wider my stance gets, obviously this would be very extreme, we go into that lead side, but when I push back, it pushes me back. So with the driver, it's not going to feel the same. You almost want to feel yourself being pushed up and back, basically between your foot and the sternum or your buttons on the top. That's the sort of angle. Now, how can you feel that? Well, I love this little exercise. I'm going to do this above the ball. We go 50-50. We go step early, 50-50, into the lead side, and then we push. And you might have seen me do this drill before, and it looks a little strange, but try it. What you're going to feel is the club accelerates a lot of speed. And you're also going to find that the club face starts to square up pretty naturally. Because as you do that and you put the correct force through the handle, which is basically through what you're doing through the feet and the pressure, it kicks the club out. And it gives us that real high speed with that high element of control as well. So very, very similar with the driver. Setup is slightly different, and what happens through impact is slightly different, simply because of this wider stance, sternum more behind, and when we push off the ground, it pushes back in a slightly different way.